Hi there. I started a church in the Seattle area with my wife and some friends. We moved here from Michigan to Seattle to plant Kayla's church, and it nearly broke me. Planting a church or going after your dream and starting something from scratch like that is really, really intense, to be honest. I mean, Seattle is the most unchurched large city in America, and when we moved here, we really didn't know anybody. Felt like God had called us to start a church, and so we moved from the Midwest and had our first meeting. It was about 3 people. Really didn't know anybody, but we felt called. We had a dream. God had changed my life so much. Jesus had transformed me, and I was like, okay, freely I've received this. Freely I want to give it back. I felt like the Lord was calling us to start this church. So we move out here, and we're trying to meet people, and people are like, do you have services? Do you have a building? We're like, no, we have a website. And so we just kind of invite people, meeting people in parks, going to the mall. Hey, can I talk to you about my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ? People are like, no, thank you. But we started to throw these random backyard parties at our house. And, I remember a bunch of people came, 65 people came to one of these parties, and 30 people said, we'll help you start the church. And then we made friends with this comedy club in Bellevue, Washington, and they said we could have our first service there. And 234 people came to our first service, and it was really amazing. We just thought, wow, a community is forming, and we're starting to see people in their lives change and all of that kind of stuff. But as soon as we got in our stride into our first year of church planting, that's when it felt like the whole world started to fall apart for us on a personal level. I remember my wife's father, he suddenly passed away. There's no indication. It was a complete surprise. And so we were like, do we travel back to Kansas where she's from or stay in Seattle? How to navigate all of that during this just first year of starting a church, which is called church planting. And then my stepdad, who is a Lutheran pastor, he got pancreatic cancer, and then he passed away. And so now in that first year, we're doing a funeral for that. My sister, who was living in India at the time, got dengue fever and went blind for 3 weeks. We didn't know how long it was going to last. But I was like, man, this is crazy. Why didn't this stuff happen before we church planted? And then there's just family disarray, several divorces in our family. And then my son, he was not even 1 year old when we moved out here. He was developing great, hitting all of his milestones, and then suddenly he stopped being able to make eye contact. He stopped being able to walk in a straight line. He was speaking 50 words at the time, but he lost his ability to just communicate with us. I couldn't play the games with him, and it was the son I had learned, the son I had grown to know, the son that I loved, suddenly was slipping away. And I was like, what is happening? And we got him evaluated, and turned out he had what's called regressive autism, where he was losing his ability to communicate and was kind of going into his own world. And that was just very, very painful. I remember just sitting on this ottoman in my living room, unable to speak for hours, not to my dad, not to my wife, just what is going on? I was like, God, we gave it all up. We sold everything we had and moved all the way across the nation to start a church for your glory. Honestly, some bitterness started to develop. I was like, God, is this the thanks we get? We're trying to be faithful. We're trying to say yes to you. Starting a church in the most unchurched large city in America, isn't that hard enough? And now there's all this personal pain, and it honestly felt like there's a target painted on our backs saying spiritually attack here, personally attack here. It was as soon as we said yes to this dream to church plant, following the Lord in obedience, started to move forward, it was everything opened up to make this already hard thing even harder. And to be honest, it nearly broke me. Then our daughter was born as well, and then it was looking like she had autism as well. She wasn't speaking, and this is also in the time of COVID, so we're trying to start this church, and then we have nowhere we can gather. And so for 58 weeks, we're online and not with people, not worshiping physically. Like, it's looking like both my kids are going to have autism. And, I love, a diversity of people, neurodivergency. Like, I accept it all, especially now as I've been in this for many years. But the real pain with my children was like, I felt like I couldn't communicate with them, and I didn't want to feel bad for wanting to have a conversation with my kids, especially my son, whom I had one relationship with. And now it was like all of our inside jokes, all the games we used to play, we can't do that anymore. And so it was just like really, really painful. I don't know if you've ever tried to go after a dream, and it's like as soon as I start to move in this direction, I feel all sorts of resistance. And that makes sense. Like, I believe like all of us have an enemy of our soul, and if we're going in the same direction of our enemy, there's no reason for him to resist us. We're not going to feel any friction or tension. But as soon as we go against the grain of our enemy's plan, of course you're going to feel some resistance. Of course there's going to be spiritual attacks, especially as like a pastor, a spiritual leader. If I'm gathering people to like walk in their purpose, to experience life in God, like strategically, why wouldn't the enemy attack a leader? Like, like the scriptures say, if you smite the shepherd, the sheep scatter. And so I really do think I felt a target on my back. And so for those of you who are like going after a dream and you're feeling like, why is this so hard? For those of you who are going after something that's in your heart, something you feel called to do, and it feels like there's just resistance and there's a fight. Well, you are experiencing that. It's real. I want to validate, whenever you go after something good, it's usually going to be on the other side of something hard. And so I want to encourage you to keep fighting and keep fighting. And to be honest, we went through a lot of struggles, and I wouldn't wish those like pains, that the dark night of the soul, I wouldn't wish that on other people. But on the other side of that, I have learned long suffering. I've learned how to endure. I've learned how to press in. I've learned how to trust on God. And I've learned like harder than waiting on God is regretting when I didn't wait on God. And so those who wait on the Lord will renew their strength. And so I felt like the Lord called me, and it was really hard, but we just kept on putting one foot in front of the other. And now, man, we're thriving. We're in a different season, and we've learned some lessons that we would have never learned without suffering. And somehow I never thought I would be able to say this. I'm thankful for the fight. I'm thankful for the battle, and I just believe like there are some lessons you only learn through suffering. Yeah, you can learn things philosophically or ideally, but when you've walked through the fire and you come out on the other side, you're just like, wow, I survived that. And so I do thank the Lord for calling me. I thank the Lord for sustaining me. There was some bitterness that started to grow as I was like, Lord, don't I deserve better? Why didn't you take care of me? But he really did take care of my soul through it all. And so I'm able to pray, and I'm able to thank the Lord. I'm able to lament, and I'm still going after my dreams. Even this YouTube process is me chasing a dream. I'm trying to write a book right now, and part of writing a book with the publishers is they want to see that I have a platform. So I'm trying to just speak to people here on YouTube, and not just so I can build a platform, but because I believe I have a message to encourage people. That's still part of my calling in this video series, and also through my book. And so what's a dream you went after that came with some suffering and pain and challenges? And if you're resonating with this content, please hit subscribe, and I'd love to encourage you on your journey. All right, see you next time. God bless you.